guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I have been playing with my gel plate, which is obviously what this is. I didn't really know what I wanted to do today. I knew I wanted to do something creative. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I just pulled my jelly plate out because it's something that you can pretty much always have fun with, and you don't have to think too hard about it. You just, play with it, and I tend to find that, even if I'm not particularly keen on a print, I will just keep layering over the top of it until I get something that I like. So yeah, that was today's plan. Not that there really was a plan. So I've got a big stack of stencils off to the side, and I just have been playing with my stencils, and I've got some homemade texture plates, and a lot of my stencils are homemade as well. Before my scan and cut broke, I did make a lot of stencils, but unfortunately my scan and cut is now broken. I just had to go and get some palette paper as I'd killed what I had on the side, so just been and got a bit more. So I'm just putting a bit of paint off to the side here on this palette paper, and I'm just picking it up with a sponge, and I'm just layering that in over the stencil. Now I'm just picking out the Harlequin pattern on here, but obviously you can do it with any stencil at all, really. Like I say, I've got a huge stack of stencils, a lot of which are just homemade ones, and whilst I've made the majority of mine, I've made on my scan and cut, you can do it with dies as well. You just die cut some shapes out of a piece of either mylar, or you can just do it like construction card type stuff, and actually the more you use them and the more layers of paint you get on the card ones, they're more sort of stronger and more resistant they become. So just pop that on there. This red paint is quite clogged up. There's not much left in the tube, but I'm determined to use it, especially at the moment, because I'm not sure when I'll be able to get to a craft shop to buy any more. So I'm trying to make the most of what supplies I have got, which is tons. I'm not short on supplies. There we go. Now, because of the size of the paper that I've got cut, I don't need to go all the way to the edges, because it won't it won't get picked up, because I'm actually using reasonably small sheets of card. I've just taken some A4 card, white card, and I've just cut them in half, so they're A5 size, and then I'm just using a piece of scrap A4 paper so that I can give it a good press. I have got really painty hands, and that's just part of the course when you're doing jelly printing. Let's see what we've got. Nice. So because I haven't gone over all of it, the yellow paint is already dry, so obviously it's not going to pick that up, so it's only going to pick up where the red paint is. So I usually will pick it up on my cardstock anyway, because I will just keep adding layers to this. So even though it's only picked up a little bit, that and obviously I wouldn't use that as a whole print, it's not wasted, because I will just layer another print in over the top in a bit. So I've also got some rather brilliant letter stencils. So I'm going to put some letters on as well. Just remember, if you're doing anything with letters or words or script or anything like that, you need to reverse your stencil, because when you lift the print, obviously it's like a mirror image. So if you put it so that you can read it the right way up on the stamp press, on the gel plate, it won't be the right way up on your final image. Sometimes I like that. Sometimes I deliberately put it on sort of the wrong way, because I like to get that reversed text image, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I like to put it so that you can actually see the lettering once it's done. I'm having that talking and working thing again. Apparently I can't do both. There we go. So I'm just picking bits out of the stencil. I don't want to cover the whole thing. And like I say, you won't get all of it anyway, just because of how what size the paper is. I really can't talk and work. Hey ho. There we go. So I've been spending the last few days doing rainbows. I've been crocheting rainbows for the window, because I don't know if it's a thing everywhere, but in the UK, particularly around where I am, the children have been drawing and painting rainbows and things and put them in the windows to cheer people up when they're on their walks, or, you know, looking out the window, whatever. And I thought, oh, that was a really lovely idea. So I thought I'd give them, there you go, see picking up some of that text there. That looks really cool. Yeah, so I thought I would join in and give them some more rainbows to look at. So I've crocheted some rainbows, and I'm halfway through doing like a little rainbow bunting thing, which is quite cute. So if I remember at some point this week, I will I'll show you what it looks like. So at that point, I think what I'm going to do is try and do a pull of what's on the plate. So in order to do that, I'm just going to put some white. I mean, you could put any colour, but I like a light colour, because then obviously it doesn't detract from all the pattern that you've put down. So I'm just spraying it on. Obviously you don't want it too thick, because otherwise all it'll pick up is the white paint. So spraying it on, and then I'll use the back of this piece, and there we go. Just give that a good firm press so that it picks up. And you can see up here on this piece, and I won't waste this will get cut into almost like washi strips, and I'll use it yeah, I'll use it as like washi strips, but you can see the pattern coming away there on that one. So let's pull this and see what we've got. It's cleaned the plate nicely, that's for sure, so it should be a good print. Ugh. Let's have a look what we got. Oh yeah, that's super cool. This is why I like the gel plate, because I really like that sort of really grungy, distressed, vintage look. And to me, it always looks like where you've had wall art on like plaster walls, where you've had old adverts and things painted on, or when you strip back the wallpaper in an old house and you can see, you know, old patterns and old paint effects that have been left behind, and I absolutely love that effect. So that's that one, and then obviously that leaves you with quite a clean plate, so you can start again. So I'm going to put a little bit of this iridescent blue, and I'm going to put a little bit of aqua in with that. Sea breeze this one is. So I've just got a combination of sort of deco arts and do crafts, Pebios, Daler Rowney. I'm not fussy. It's all acrylic paint. you can use it all together. So I do. There we go. And if you feel that you've got too much, so you can always just roll off your brayer and then go back in, and what that'll do is it just lifts a bit off of the paint. There we go. And that's just going to be our sort of background for our first layer. So then I'm going back into my stencils to see what I've got. I've got so many, it can be difficult to choose sometimes. I think I'm going to start off with this one, which is like water droplets or something like that. So I'm going to go with that one. And I think I'm going to go back in with that metallic sapphire paint that I first started with. Yeah, excuse the squeaking of my chair. It is ultra creaky because I'm leaning and reaching this way and that. It's super noisy. So I'm just going in. With that paint. You need a little bit more. Oops. Like I say, I'm not doing the whole stencil. It's just to get bits of it. And then I've also got these homemade texture plates, and all it is textured wallpaper samples on a piece of like cereal box card. And if I press that into where that stencil is quite firmly, when I lift it back up, you can see that obviously I've picked up some of the paint, but it will have left some of it behind, and some of that textured pattern that is on the wallpaper. So you can see it better there once I lift up the stencil. Now it has lifted some of that blue behind. That's okay. I don't mind that. Like I say, I'm not going for perfection anyway, because by the time you've sort of finished layering them all up, you don't necessarily notice the individual elements anyway. There we go. So again, just taking some of that out. And lift him, and then there we go. And just a little bit up here. So I've put quite a lot of pattern on with this layer. And it really is just personal preference. Sometimes I put loads and loads on, and then other times I'll just put, you know, a little bit, a little hint here and there. There we go. There we are. So I think what I'll do is I'll look through. So these are all the ones that I've been making today. So what I'll do is I'll go through and find something that's got some colour on it. So I've got that one, or I've got that one. It's a bit bluer. And I'll just go through and find something that I want to add a layer to. And for some I'll add more and others less. It just depends on. And I tend to print on both sides, and then if I don't particularly like a side, so I'm going to go with that one. If I don't particularly like a side, I can just use the other side. What is difficult is when you end up with prints on both sides that you like, and you've got to pick. Or you do something double-sided, I suppose. That's your other option. There we go. So again, you can see that it's building up on the scrap paper that I'm using. And then you can see there that again, because in parts it started to dry, it hasn't picked up the whole of the pattern, and it's just added a layer to that green one, which is really nice. I really like that. So now I'm going to put something else over the top. Trying to decide what. So I've got a bit of metallic silver. I'll try a little bit of that. And what shall we do stencil wise? I like this one. Spotty Dotty. This is a new one. So this is the one that came in the mixed media kit, magazine kit thing that I bought the other day. So I'll definitely use this one. So obviously you can layer it up as much as you want, but you know, don't forget that you can continue to layer even after you've pulled the print. So you know, I'll do so much of it on the Gelli plate, and then I might do some additional layers directly to the prints with the stencils, but then also, you know, I'll quite often pull out my stamps and add some layers with my stamps. So that's really subtle, even more so in real life than it is on the camera, but I really like that. So then I'm going to place those there. And go for a few more of them. So tomorrow's my last day off, and then I'm back to work, which I'm dreading a little bit. I work in the NHS, I'm a nurse in the NHS, so as I'm sure you can imagine, things are a bit bonkers, and you know, people having to do things that they don't perhaps normally do as part of their normal roles. But you know, everybody's stepping up and doing what needs to be done. We're lucky to have the NHS workers that we've got. That's not just doctors and nurses, that's, you know, support staff and our amazing porters, and we've got, you know, secretarial staff, and we've got, you know, everybody that works for the NHS. I think most people go into work for the NHS because they care, and you know, in challenging times like that, that's what we need, isn't it? So I've gone over that with some blue because I accidentally picked it up with my sponge, and it has sort of dampened it down a little bit, which is okay. I preferred it as the silver, but anyhow, never mind. Put a little bit more silver out. Put that sponge to one side because I've coated it. Give them all a wash in a bit, and I'll be able to use them again then. That's that. And just put a couple up here. There we go. Okay, now this one will be quite subtle, I think, so I'll go for something that's reasonably dark, you're more likely to see it. I keep getting my sheet of paper to try and stop my hands getting mucky, but it's not going well. I'm still getting mucky. That's really cool. So it's picked up some of them, but then others, like down here, where obviously that had dried because that was the first one that I did, so you didn't really get much of that one. It's just a tiny little bit, but those are awesome. I like that. And then I think I am actually going to do another layer on this one. So I've got this stencil here, which has got some script. I think it's French, but I wouldn't like to say for sure. So I'm just going to put a little bit of black paint through parts of this. I've reversed it, so it will be the right way, but to be fair, it doesn't really matter with this stencil because it's not particularly legible script anyway. But there we have it. There we go. That's cool. And then we'll put a bit down here. There's the black paint. Getting a bit dark, so I'm going to put my lights on in a moment. There we are. Fantastic. So I'll leave that at that. And we will pull that off on there. So we got a little bit, but again up in the top there where that the first bit I did has dried a little bit. Didn't really pick any of that up. So I'm going to lift this one now. I think I will use some pink. Let's see if I can lift it with this one. So let's have a fresh piece. Put that on. This is wobbling the camera, I know, but it's because my camera is table mounted. So there's not a lot I can do about it. So that hasn't actually pulled all that well, so I don't know what we'll get in terms of this print, but we can have a look. Ah, no, it's pulling up quite nicely. There's still some of the text left behind, but that's okay because that'll just get picked up in our next one. Oh yeah, that looks really nice. There you go. So that one's quite busy because it's got lots, obviously, of that sort of water droplet pattern in the background, and then it's got the writing over the top. The dots are actually not that noticeable in the background there, but you can knock that back by you know, putting a bit of gesso over it in places if you're finding it too busy. So I'm just going to pop the lights on. She says. There we go. better. Let's see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that on the plate. I'm not going to bother cleaning that up before I go on to my next print, because it'll just get picked up in the next print, which will be quite cool. So I'm going to do some purple. I don't normally do purple. I'm not a big lover of purple. I normally only use purple at Halloween, but I do like to have all different colours on hand. Because you know you never know what a project's going to call for, and I tend to do a lot of my jelly prints and just store them, and then when I'm wanting a quick background for something, you know, if I haven't got a patterned paper that I want to use, or if I just want to use my own background, I've got something that I can go back to. So just looking to see if there's any on here that I can put a bit of purple over. Just do it on the back of this one. So I try not to waste paint as much as possible. So if I do want to roller it off, I'll quite often do it on something that I've yet to print, because it's just another layer that's there in the background. So right, now then, I have got a really pretty little star stencil, and I'm trying to make my mind up whether I want to do it first or second. I might do that next. I might put some I've got another type of letter stencil, so I think I'll do some letters. I really like letters and numbers, particularly in mixed media projects. I do use them quite a lot, so that's why I've got quite a lot of different stencils that have got different alphabets, and they're good for if you're doing art journaling. My handwriting's not very pretty, so I'll sometimes, if I want to do a word in a quote in nice big letters, and I don't want to print it, I want to perhaps paint it onto the page or whatever, I'll quite often use a stencil. There we go. And then I'll put some, I'll move some bottles out of the way so I can get my stencil up high enough. Put some bits at the top here. There we go. There we are. I think that'll do. Sometimes less is more, and I struggle with that. I do tend to be a more is more sort of person, and I will put far too much on a lot of the time, and I have to sort of remind myself to not overdo it. So I'm not pressing too hard because I don't want to take too much off. Too late, took too much off, never mind. Well, it's quite cool on that one, so that's good. And that's because I managed to do that quite quickly. It had not dried on the plate, so that when I lifted it, obviously it's lifted it really well. That's okay. I'm going to put some gold stars over the top, and then I might just lift the main print from that one. The thing I like about jelly printing is it's peaceful, because you've got no idea what it's going to turn out like, so it almost feels like it's hard to go wrong. I know there isn't any right or wrong when it comes to creativity and but I've got a terrible habit of being a perfectionist in my own mind. It's, you know, I'll have, and I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but I have an image in my head of what a project is going to look like, and if it doesn't turn out to look like that, I can find myself being disappointed in myself, which is, you know, quite frustrating. And because you've only got half an idea of what it's going to look like when you pull the prints anyway. You sort of haven't got the same expectation on yourself. So for me, I find that really makes it a really sort of peaceful craft to do. Okay. Pretty. Okay. And I might do there we go. I've got this one that's got all different numbers and things. So I want the gold to dry a little bit before I go in with the next layer. That'll do. Okay, so I might use this same piece to pick some of that up. Awesome. That's really cool. So because I've put this one on right side up, obviously you can read it there. That's a number 4, and that's number 8. It will be backwards on the print. I haven't done that deliberately. I just didn't think about it. But like I say, I don't mind. I sometimes like it to be back to front. It just adds another dimension to the piece. So I'm just going to make sure before I put a layer to lift this print, I'm just going to make sure that the black is not going to contaminate it. There we go. So now I'm going to put some white on, and I'm going to brayer that on. Put an awful lot on there, but that'll do. And then I will see what I can lift. There we go. So this has picked up quite a few different layers. Ah, that's awesome. So that's picked up not just you know, the last few layers that we put down, but you can see there's bits of that script, there's some of the dots there that we put down. So there's quite a lot come up on that print that was from the previous layers of print. And again, that's quite busy, but like I say, you can sort of knock that back and make it less busy. So what I'm doing just for a moment is I'm just looking through what I've got off to the side, and I'm just having a look to see what I've got that I can either add more layers to, or where I've got a back which is still blank, because I'm not done playing yet. But I don't really want to cut any more card up because I've done quite a lot of sheets of card. And again, I am just thinking about the fact that, you know, none of us know when we're next going to be able to go shopping for that sort of thing. And I'm hoping it's not going to be too long, but I don't think anybody knows at the moment. So the fundamental things, I'm trying to be frugal. Not that I'm trying not to use it, because that would be silly. We need to use our craft supplies more than ever right now, I think. But I am just trying to be a bit more frugal with it and sort of thoughtful about how I use things. So I've just put a thin layer of a really pretty metallic blue on there, and then I am just going to roll it off. So on this one, because it's quite busy, what I've done is I've just rolled off some of the metallic blue, and that's starting to knock that back. And obviously if I did a white layer and rolled off what was the leftovers on my roller, that would knock it back again even more. I do need to buy myself a bigger brayer, because I've only got the little one. I did have one on order, but the order got cancelled, so I need to put a new order in. Okay, what have we got in the way of stencils? What's a nice one? I've got this one, which obviously I've used with some greeny yellow ink, but that's okay. I can just go over the top. I am naughty for not bothering to clean my stencils. I'm sure it'll come back to bite me at some point, but I don't spend a fortune on them. Like I say, a lot of them are handmade. I just haven't got the energy or the patience to wash all my stencils. The only time I really wash my stencils is if I've used texture paste or something like that with them. Then I do give them a wash. I tend to soak them in the sink and give them a good wash at that point. There we go. And put a little bit of awesome. So I've got. So I've got this one, which has got some hexagons on. Oops. Very cool. And you can see it's still left that sort of ghosting, even though I've picked that one up quite quickly, and I think that's just because it's the black. So, you know, obviously you can see the pigment a bit more with that one. So, I'm wondering about putting something transparent over the top. Looking at what paints I've got. Where is it? I've got this orange iridescent, it's one of the Pebeo ones, and these are quite transparent if you braid them out. So to add a bit of colour into it. There you go. So as you can see, you can still see the circles, but it just adds a little bit of colour. And again, I've just braided off onto a scrap piece. So got this one, which is quite cool. I don't want to put anything down just yet because it's still a little bit damp. So I think what I'll do is I'll go and finish them off, because this video has been going for 40 minutes already and I'm sure there's nobody left watching it. But if any of you are still watching, I will come back once I've finished these pieces and I will show you what I've done. Okay, so it's much later in the day now. As you can see, I've had a clean up. I have washed my stencils for a change because they were really painty. And I've sort of finished for the day. So to start with, I did some just green paint on green cardstock. And this is because I like to use jelly printed card for die cutting foliage. It just gives it a little bit more depth and dimension. So usually whenever I've got the gel press out, I will do a few sheets of green. So that's those ones. I've got some really interesting prints on my cleanup sheets. So that was the piece of A4 paper that I was using throughout to pull prints up. And that in itself is a really lovely piece of artwork. So I will use that. And then I've got a few scraps of deli paper that again I used just in the cleanup of the plate. Now I will either use them on projects, because some of them have got some really cool elements on. That one's really awesome. If I don't use them this time round, they will go back into the jelly printing box, and I will use them again next time to clean up the plate again. And again, I'll just keep building layers of them, and then at some point they'll get used as part of a project. So this was the final print that I got off of the plate. So obviously that's got lots of texture and lots of layers from all the various bits of stenciling and painting and stuff that I had done. It's very textured around the edge because the plate was really starting to dry up by that point, and it did take a little bit of a clean up this time, but that was okay. I've got this one, which I really like that. I cleaned one of the stencils off backwards on here, so you've got the sort of the image of the letters, turn it up the other way, coming through, and then this sort of dotted white paint was actually what was on the plate, and I pressed through the stencil, so when I put it down on top of a print, obviously I got the texture from the paint, and then it's just texture on the background. On the back there is, I don't know if you're picking it up on the camera actually, but there is some gold paint in there, so there's a little bit of sparkle on that one. And this one, which has got that one on the other side. Now these ones very nice for backgrounds because there's not too much going on, that you could you know, build more on these and use them, like I say, as good backgrounds. And that one, I love this one. The blue has got a bit of pearlescent shine to it, and it really reminds me of like a blue lagoon with the sand edge and sort of green, and then going out into that beautiful sort of azure blue colour there. And then another one with some of that stencil on the background there. And then these were the small ones, and as you can see, I did a whole rake of them. And some of them were quite simple. So you got that one, which has just got a little bit of the backwards numbers going down the sort of the centre there. Again, this is really quite shiny in the light. It was a pearlescent paint. And then on the back it's red, and again that's got a bit of pearlescent to it, and then it's just got a little bit of this scripting down in that bottom corner there. Got this awesome yellow and navy blue one with the numbers, and again I did the same thing, so I stenciled through there and then I flipped the stencil, and you can sort of see obviously there where I've flipped the stencil over. So that one's quite cool. And then this one, this is tons of layers. It was one of those ones I didn't like it, so I just kept layering it up. And in the end, it's quite busy and it's quite dark, but I do actually quite like it. And I'm sure I will be able to find a project to use that one on. This is one of my favourites. So this has got some of that Harlequin, but what I did was I stenciled with the orangey sort of paint through the Harlequin stencil, and then I left the stencil in place and I stenciled over the top of it with one that had got a little bit of scripty, I think it was numbers, in black, so that in the Harlequins you've got the actual Harlequin itself, but then you've got some of that script stamp coming through it as well. And then you can see some of the, it's very subtle, I don't know if you can even catch it on the camera, but you can see some of the other stencils from other layers. And then I'm not so keen on that one on the background there. But again, I think, you know, if I added more to that, I could, you know, potentially would have liked that one, but because I really like that one, I would imagine I'll use that side. Then I've got that one, which again is just very simple. I think that's actually where I've just rolled off. And then we've got this one, which has got a few different layers and a few bits. It's all right. Again, I'll use it for something. This one, which you can see some of the dots and circles coming through, and obviously all that script, and then that lovely sort of splash stencil in the background. And then that one, I really love the autumnal colours of that one. I think that's really pretty. And again, although it didn't print all over, you know, you could easily add in a bit of watercolour or anything really, and build up on that one. And I've got this one. Now this one's brilliant. I don't know if you can sort of catch it on the camera. I think you can see it a bit there. It's really, really textured. Right at the end, just before I went and dunked my gel plate into some warm soapy water, I got some paint all around the very edges of the board where it was all starting to go crusty, and I pulled as much of that crusty layered paint up as possible, so it's really, really textured, and I love that for the texture as much as anything else. That's that one. This is another one of my favourites, again using that number stencil, and again you've got that sort of almost this really reminds me of that when you've peeled wallpaper off of an old wall in an old house, and you can see all the different layers of paint and paper and stuff that's been over the years on the wall. I love that one. And this one, I think this one's really fun. Again, got that really lovely vintagey look to it with because I used the distressed Harlequins and the distressed letter stencil, that really adds to that sort of grungy vintagey look, so I like that one. And then on the background, on the back of that one, that's just sort of a bit of a hodgepodge of where I've picked up various different layers on that one, but I do really like that side, so I would use that side. And then we've got this one. This one's quite textured. I think I must have used the texture plate. I must have put the texture plate on this one, and it's actually left it a bit textured in places. That one looks almost sort of rusty to me. I quite like that. But then on the other side we've got that one, which is quite busy, but again I think you could knock that back quite nicely with a little bit of gesso. But I really love, you can see a few of the different stencils coming through on that one. Then I've got this one, which I really didn't like because my brayer got stuck, and it wasn't rolling properly, and it actually ended up smudging the underneath layers, and I was like, oh, binking heck, it's ruined it. and I didn't like it, but then I went over it with, I actually, I put some white paint on the gel plate, and then I put the stencil over the top and then pressed into that with the texture plate, or the other way around, and then I pushed that through the stencil, so you're getting the texture and the letters from the stencil there, and I actually think it's sort of brought it all together, which is nice. But then on the background I've got this really lovely vintagey, again it's that sort of distressed wall look for me, and I really like, I think this stencil sort of lends itself to that as well. I really like that one. And then we've got this one, which is sort of greens. There's a little bit of shine in the background of that one. Obviously you've got some of the black lettering, and then again I've used some of the, pressed a texture plate, one of the handmade texture plates, into some white paint on the press, and then just picked up some of that textured paint in places. But then I've got this one, which I love. So again, we've got those distressed harlequins. So this is a slightly darker version of what we were looking at just now. So this is obviously the first generation print of that, where you can see the harlequin with the text in the harlequins. So I really like that one. And then we've got this one, which is all sort of reds and blues. You can see there is some sort of numbers in the background, and then you've got these black stars all over it. I really like that, and I think that would be a really nice one to use for Independence Day, for American Independence Day. So if I do any ATCs or something for that, I will probably use this, and the next, I've got another one to the side which is similar colours. So on the back of that one, it's greens, blues and pinks. Again, a couple of different circle sort of stencils. And again, I've used the same stencil. So that's where I've stenciled through. And then I've flipped the stencil over, and that's the pattern you get from the reverse of the stencil. So that was quite cool. Again, this one's that same reds and blues, and some of the black stars coming through. Again, I'd probably use that for Independence Day. Although I do like the back of that one as well, so that'll be one that it'll be hard to choose which one to use. I like this one because I do like that sort of paler, sort of orangey yellow background. Again, you've got some of the letters coming through there and some of the stars, which I really like. And then we've got this one, which is the green with the blue lettering. It's okay. I think the blue is a little bit vibrant because it's obviously first generation, and I've done it over the top of the blue splashes. But again, I think you could totally knock that back. That would probably look really cool if you got some bubble wrap and dipped it in white paint and sort of knocked it back with a bit of that. And then finally, the purple one, which again, it's very busy, and purple's not my colour. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. I think for the right project, I could make it work. So that's what I've made on my gel plate today. I do sort of store all of my prints. Every now and again, I'll have a play, and I've got a crate where I store all my hand printed papers. And then if I want to do a project using some jelly print in the background, I've usually got something that I can select from. So I hope you've enjoyed having a play on the gel press with me, and I hope if you've got one, it's inspired you to get yours out and have a play and see what you can come up with. There's loads and loads of videos on YouTube giving loads of helpful advice on on how to use it, and all different techniques that you can do. And obviously I've primarily used stencils today, but you can use all sorts of things to make patterns and textures on your gel plate. You can more or less use anything, as long as it's not sharp, as long as it's not going to pierce your gel plate. You can pretty much use anything. I just fancied playing with my stencils today. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sure that you will see some of these prints again at some point in the future, as I will get them out and create with them. So thanks for joining me. If you stayed along this length of time, then well done you. And thank you very much. And I will see you all again very soon in the next crafty video. Bye for now.